I've been a technical editor at BikeRadar for 5 years now, and in that time I've tested hundreds of bits of kit and dozens, if not hundreds, of bikes as well. So just like Joe and Ruben, I've taken the hot seat and I'm committing myself to telling you 5 of the best bits from those past 5 years. And as always, if you want to hear more from me or anyone else on BikeRadar, don't forget to like and subscribe. But for now, on to my first choice. And it's the Transition Scout, a trail bike, but not the latest one. It's actually the previous generation, and because I like posh things, it's the carbon one as well. And this was a long-term bike that I had back in the days of What Mountain Bike, and I had it for a year. I first tested the Transition Scout about 4 years ago, and that was the aluminium version. So when I got the opportunity to run the carbon one for a year, I jumped at it because, simply put, I think the Transition Scout is the most fun bike I've ever ridden. The fashion at the moment is for long, low, slack trail bikes that are absolutely rapid down a hill, and I do subscribe to that philosophy. Now, the Scout wasn't particularly long nor particularly slack, but what it did have was bagfuls of character. 125mm of travel at the back isn't a huge amount, but when the travel is so good, that's what helps get the bike over pretty much anything I could throw at it. I like going fast on a bike, but what I really like doing is popping off some routes or hitting a berm and just having a bit of fun on a bike. And while it might not have been super raked out, that's what the Scout was really good at. I built the bike from the frame up, and one of the best upgrades I did was remove the air shock and fit a coil shock. Coil shocks are usually found on enduro bikes and downhill bikes, less so on trail bikes, and certainly rarely found on a bike with only 125mm of travel at the back. It was, however, one of the best things I did to the bike. The coil shock gives loads of small bump sensitivity and plenty of mid-stroke support, so I could really pop the bike around and push it into corners. Coil shocks won't work on every bike because it depends a little bit on the progressivity of the linkage, but there's plenty of progression in the back end from transition, so the coil shock worked really well. I had loads of fun on the bike over the past couple of years, including numerous trips to the Alps where, again, despite not having much travel, it actually handled everything I could throw at the bike, from big chunky downhill descents to slow speed technical stuff and numerous multi-day trips through the backcountry. It's a bike that I would happily keep forever and ever. The next item is significantly cheaper, and it is the Nukeproof Horizon clipless pedal. Nukeproof offer it in the CS, which is the smaller version, and the CL, which is a slightly larger platform version of their trail pedals. I have a lot of pedals in my garage, mostly from Shimano. However, it is the Nukeproofs that end up on my test bikes most often. I really like the feel of the pedals through more skate-inspired trail shoes. The pins offer a nice bit of feel, and the cleat mechanism itself has proved reliable from day one. I have a number of pairs of the Nukeproofs, both large and small. However, it is the red CSs that seem to be my most commonly used pedals. And despite a year and a half of almost constant use, they're still running nice and smooth, with a tiny bit of maintenance that's actually really easy to do. Nukeproof use the same cleat design that Shimano have, and so because I have numerous pairs of shoes in my house from Shimano and Nukeproof and Ritchie, it means it's really easy for me to jump between shoes with the same pair of pedals. Number 3 on my list is one that is slightly controversial, and it is the Onesie. I ride all the way through winter, whether it's testing Trail Bike of the Year or various other products, or just riding for fun. So I spend a lot of my time caked in mud. 2 years ago, I discovered the Dirtlej Dirtsuit, and it changed my winter riding experience. Yes, it is bright green and I look a bit like Kermit the Frog, but current versions have slightly more muted colours, so don't worry about that. The main benefit of a Onesie, in my opinion, is that without a jacket flapping around, there's no dirt and water ingress up your back. And this leads to a drier, more comfortable riding experience. The other benefit is that because your shorts are attached to the top half, they don't start falling down, so you don't have that nasty builder's bum crack when you're riding in wet and muddy conditions. They're not perfect, they are a little bit warmer, however most of the ones on the market I've tried at least have plenty of ventilation. That said, do I recommend any of the ones on the market? And I'm not sure I do, because none of them are perfect yet. The two main players is the Dirtlej, which doesn't have the best fabric, although it's not too expensive, and Endura. Now the Endura suit is very expensive, but I think they've got the cut a little bit wrong. However, keep your eyes peeled onto the market because there are a couple of other options out there and I think the Dirtlej and the Enduro will improve with time. So this is more of a concept rather than a particular item. I think onesies are amazing when they work properly. Item number 4 is another bike that has stayed in my possession perhaps slightly longer than it should have done, and it's the Lauf True Grit gravel bike. I think you could almost count all gravel bikes in this item, but it is the Lauf that's really taken my eye. The reason why I like gravel riding is I like the element of getting out into the countryside, into the hills, and while I'm not particularly scared of riding on the road, it is more pleasant to be riding on trails and dirt tracks when there are no cars around. I also like the element of unpredictability in changing surfaces and little skids or losing traction here and there. It just makes for a more exciting riding experience. Now, I could get this from a mountain bike, and there are plenty of arguments for just riding a cross-country mountain bike, but I think a gravel bike does a better job on gravel roads than a mountain bike. I like having long rides where you get that consistent sort of exercise nature that you don't really get on mountain bikes, but you do get from road bikes. So gravel merges the two together, and generally speaking, I really enjoy it. What sets the Lauf apart from other gravel bikes that I've tried is the use of the Grit fork. Now, this is 30mm of leaf-sprung suspension travel, and it makes a big difference to the comfort and control on varying surfaces, in my opinion. It's not perfect, but I do think it is a bonus on this bike. The True Grit has carried me over many hills and many dales, down dirt tracks, down rocky roads, down everything you can imagine, and it is a bike that I've really enjoyed riding over the past couple of years, and I suspect will continue to enjoy riding in the years to come. So the final item on my list is going to be another controversial one, because I'm sorry if you're a hater, but it's the e-bike, and I love them. Now, I'm not saying get rid of your analog bike anytime soon, and the vast majority of my riding is fully human powered, other than when I go on an uplift. However, from time to time, there's nothing better than jumping on an e-bike if you want to do repeated, quick laps of your local hillside. They are constantly evolving, so from a technical point of view, and that's what I'm interested in as a tech editor, they're a really interesting niche to follow, and the motors and their integration into the bike as a whole has evolved over the past couple of years into something unrecognisable from the first e-bikes I rode. The majority of e-bikes seem to be focused at trail riding, but even within this one particular niche, there are two different evolving fields. There are bikes like the Specialized Turbo Lever, which have a massive battery for huge ranges and plenty of power. But you've also got bikes like the Lapierre E-Zesty, which has a smaller battery, which is just there to give you a little push up the hill for that extra bit of assistance. What you prefer will depend on how you like to ride and what you want to get out of them. And there are many people who do think that e-bikes are just a bad thing and it's not mountain biking, and that's fine. The two elements I love the most about e-bikes are this. One, riding up really steep, loose technical climbs is an awful lot of fun when you've got that assistance from the motor. And yet, sometimes I bang it right into turbo and absolutely moto all the way up. The other thing I really like though is keeping it in eco or maybe trail mode, and the ability to go and hit, say, 10 laps of my local hill instead of the 5 or 6 that I would have done if I was using my own legs. It gives you the ability to get out and ride more in the same amount of time. And if you're time pressed, I think an e-bike is really good for that. Now, there are people who will say that e-bikes is cheating, but I'm going to say two things to that. First off, the hardest ride I did in 2018 was on an e-bike. I was physically done in after it, and that's because we rode further, we rode harder, we rode up steep and more technical terrain. Physically, as a whole body experience, I was absolutely knackered. Now, my other argument to the cheating bit is the bike park. There are plenty of people who seem to hate e-bikes but are quite happy getting on an uplift van. Now, treat an e-bike like your personal uplift and you still get a little bit of exercise, so I think it's less cheating than getting on an uplift. So there's my top 5. Some of them might be slightly controversial, and I'm sure in the comments plenty of you will let me know your thoughts on them. In the meantime, don't forget to like and subscribe.